The Voting Act of 1965 was signed by President Lyndon B. Johnson. It outlawed the discriminatory voting practices in southern states. It included things like literacy tests for voting. In the presidential race of 1964, Johnson was officially elected in a landslide victory and used his mandate to push for legislation he believed would improve the American way of life, such as stronger voting rights laws. On March 7, 1965, peaceful voting rights protesters in Selma, Alabama, were attacked by the state police. This affected the way Congress wondered about if civil rights laws can be properly enforced by the local authorities. The question was whether the federal government should guarantee the right to vote by assuming the power to register voters. Since qualifications for voting were traditionally set by state and local officials, federal voting rights protection represented a significant change in the constitutional balance of power between the states and federal government. President Johnson called in for comprehensive voting rights legislation after he knew about the Selma to Montgomery March. In his speech to the joint session of Congress on March 15, 1965, the president outlined the devious ways in which election officials denied African American citizens the vote. Blacks that attempted to vote have been told by election officials that they got details wrong on the literacy tests and voting. Then they told blacks they don't have the right literacy skills or they did the application wrong. Blacks whose population suffered a high rate of illiteracy due to centuries of oppression and poverty would be forced to take literacy tests, which they sometimes failed. Congress passes the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to help blacks to vote in areas with records of discrimination. This legislation outlawed literacy tests and provided for the appointment of federal examiners with the power to register qualified citizens to vote in certain jurisdictions with a history of voting discrimination. President Johnson also told Congress that voting officials, primarily in southern states, have been known to force black voters to recite the entire Constitution or explain the most complex provisions of state laws, a task most white voters would have been hard-pressed to accomplish. In some cases, even blacks with college degrees were turned away from the polls. The Voting Rights Bill got passed in the U.S. Senate on May 26, 1965. Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act into law on August 6, 1965. Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights leaders present at the ceremony. The act banned literacy tests and made poll taxes illegal, and then the 24th Amendment came in. Suspends literacy tests and other devices found to be discriminatory as qualifications for voting in any federal, state, local, or primary election in the states of Alabama, Alaska, Georgia, Louisiana, and others. Extends civil and criminal protection to qualified persons seeking to vote and to those who urge or aid others to vote. This act provides new tools to assure the right to vote and supplements the previous authority granted by the Civil Rights Act of 1957, 1960, and 1964. It is intended primarily to enforce the 15th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, which is provided in Section 1. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. A demonstration of the ability to read, write, understand, or interpret any given material, a demonstration of any educational achievement or knowledge of any particular subject, proof of good moral character, or proof of qualification through a procedure in which another person must vouch for the prospective voter. The Act of 1965 states that no person should be denied the right to vote in any federal, state, or local election.